Information is power.
Tell the truth. Tell the truth. Tell the truth. Tell the truth.
Information is power.
Tell the truth. Tell the truth.
Information is power.
BS3 Network, changing the way you watch BS3 TV. Network, changing the way you listen to podcasts.
Peace, everybody. Peace, everybody. Welcome to the program, the Information Man Show. I hope everybody can hear me out there. If you can hear the mic right now, hit a 7 in the chat room. I just want to make sure that sound is going to be great here. I tried to make some adjustments to the mic and sound, a little booster. So I hope everybody can hear me clearly. Let it be known in the chat room by hitting a 7. Now, this is a show that everybody told me from last week going into this week that they were looking forward to, because we have the Empowered Esquire TV live with me. And, you know, we've done these shows before where we've gotten right to the point. No innuendo, no BS, just straight legal breakdowns. So we're going to talk with the attorney at law, the Empowered Esquire, to give you the legal perspective on what's going to happen in this particular case, potentially from a legal point of view, because all of us right now are under the belief that Dejanay Jackson, who I jumped out of the window myself and brought this issue up. Here she is right here, that there was a warrant for her arrest, as far as we were told, media standards. And far as we know that the Mexican government wants Dejanay Jackson. That's the least of what we know. And then there was this notion out there from a investigative reporter, Mr. Gerardo, who is right here on the screen. Gerardo Ziegler, if I'm saying that last name wrong, I know Gerardo is his first name. We know that it was Chronicle Speaks who has been corresponding with him. He's an investigative reporter right down on the ground in Mexico, mainly Spanish speaking. We know that he was on recently this week, the lead attorney. And I want to say shout out to the lead attorney, because I have for you a treat today, because I'm going to play with the fair use, some portions, not the whole thing, but the most important portions of his discussion with this investigative reporter, Gerardo, from Mexico, as to was she arrested, what happened? Because according to the investigative reporter you see up here, as he was talking to the lead attorney who can speak Spanish and was interpreting what he was saying, is that there's information that's happening in Mexico that maybe allegedly the American press is not getting, that he is reporting on. So we're going to get into that. I'm going to show that at some point in time in this broadcast today. But mainly, we're going to have the Empowered Esquire TV break down some of the legal ramifications. I was talking to her before we went live, and she's going to tell you some things about the extradition treaty that you may not know about that has changed between Mexico and the United States. I'm going to show you something real quick. So when I dug this up, ladies and gentlemen, it said right here that United States and Mexico extradition treaty of 1861. Now, that's a long time ago. The Empowered Esquire said that there's been some things that have been changed that we need to know. So I will fall back and let her break those things down. What we want to do today is stay based in the law and not in the window. We can have our opinions about what we think happened to this young lady, or what didn't happen, or who's responsible. I personally believe that they're all responsible, but I'm not a lawyer. I'm not the judge. We need to see how this works. And of course, this is not going to take place in an American court, or maybe the Empowered Esquire can break down how that will work for us today. If there is time today, I may convene a panel to let people come up and ask her questions if she's able to still be here with us, or maybe if she's not able to be here with us, we can still have a discussion amongst ourselves about how you feel about the situation at this point in time, based on what we either think we know or what we do know. So what I want to do right now, with all ado, is bring up the Empower Esquire and thank her for being here right now. And unmute yourself, sister. All right. Are you there?
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm Now, I noticed that you did get booted out of the system. I don't know why that happened. It's a trip how StreamYards can work sometimes. I was thinking about bringing you into my other system, but we're going to try to do our best to try to get through this right now. So let everybody know who may not be familiar with you, the Empower Esquire TV, your background in law. For those people who may not know, there's a lot of people in the chat room coming in that may know now, but there's those that may not. Give us your credentials or your background if you could.
All right. So hello, everyone. I am so excited to be back on the Information Man show. Before I even say anything about myself, I got to give Info his props. You all know before, I always say he's the GOAT. He really is. I so enjoy his content and his channel. And with that being said, my name is Felicia Pearson. You're welcome. My name is Felicia Pearson. I'm a practicing attorney. My channel is Empowered Esquire TV. And I share information about the law. I explain the law, and I break down a lot of different pop culture cases. My career began in criminal law. I do not currently practice criminal law. However, that background is where I come from when I speak on these types of cases in particular, especially this instance of Shanquella Robinson's passing and the subsequent investigation.
Now, am I right or wrong? Were you a former prosecutor? I want to get that correct.
Yes, I was a former prosecutor. However, when I left and went to private practice, I did dabble in some criminal defense. I shared on my channel yesterday that I've actually been second chair in a case where the main counsel, or the first chair, was opposing a request for extradition. And I believe it was Russia that was trying to extradite the first chair's counsel, and he brought me on as second chair to write the opposition to extradition and to try to stay him being taken back to Russia. So I shared that I do have some personal insight on how extradition works and what that paperwork looks like.
Okay. All right. With that said, instead of going over the whole situation that happened to Shanquella, we know that it was horrible. Most of us by now know the story, the backstory. Of course, in summary, she supposedly she did. She went to Cabo, Mexico, with some, I'm not going to call these people friends. I think right now what's happening is the people are saying, we should stop saying that these were friends, because we know that there was one person, I think Khalid Cooks, who was a friend of hers of 5 years, if I'm not mistaken. The mother said that she didn't know any of these people, that she knew that they went to college together, and that she was going down there to celebrate someone's birthday. I think Nasid Wiggins or whatever, Mr. Wiggins' birthday. And there was this whole thing about they were partying. There was this innuendo about her being under the influence of liquor, and that it was first reported to the family that it was alcohol poisoning. At least that's what the so-called individuals who went down there with her, who people thought were her friends, but now it looks like they were more like they were frenemies. And this is my opinion, folks. And then, of course, the mother found out that after the autopsy report arrived to their knowledge, or came out, that it was not indeed alcohol poisoning, that it was indeed, as far as we know, it was some form of femicide. And I want you today to break down what that is legally, femicide, that she was killed or murdered, or murder, of course, is a legal term, ladies and gentlemen, that she was killed because her back was broken, her vertebrae and neck, and that it was not alcohol poisoning, as was reported by some of these individuals who flew back to North Carolina and had the audacity to go to the mother's house for a few days and was not honest with her. Now, this is coming from the mother's perspective, not something that I'm making up. And then, of course, we're all wondering, why did they let all of these people go back to the United States without holding them there for more deeper questioning. Of course, there's been a lot of innuendo about whether the police in Mexico versus the medical examiner, doctor, whether they were being honest about the report, how long she was alive. There was reports that she was alive for 3 hours. Now we're finding out all different. We're hearing all different things, and we don't know what's true from fact to fiction to a certain degree, because in some of my research, the Empower Esquire, I was telling you before we went live, Mexico does have some serious issues, as we know, with corruption, corrupt police, corrupt political system. And Mr. Gerardo, who's the investigative reporter down there, said that they've been going through some changes in their laws because of these problems that they have in their government. But let me stop right there, and let me ask you right now, what is the legal breakdown of femicide? Because I got to be honest with you, that's a word that we really don't hear often.
So I quite frankly cannot give you a breakdown, if you will, of femicide, because our laws in the United States work differently.
Okay.
So my understanding is that Mexico refers to femicide in relation to a woman who is murdered in some heinous way. My understanding of femicide in Mexico is that it doesn't only apply to a quote unquote hate crime. It can also refer to the relationship that the victim had with the persons that allegedly killed her, et cetera, et cetera. But that term femicide is what Mexico is labeling what allegedly happened to Shanquella Robinson. That is not a term that is being used by U.S. law enforcement.
Okay. And I want to say peace to everybody in the chat room. I see Golden Melanin, Bonnie Rose, Be the Difference Clothing, Hakeem, Just Natural, those folks that are coming over, Miss Mills, Deborah Guns, Empress Goddess, Jill's Chocolate Boutique, Stephen Gilmore YouTube channel, and Queen is in the house. Keisha is in the house. Many people that come over, Judah, Queen, all of you that come over, I appreciate you. Well, I was under this impression that femicide was a term basically that it's when you have female on female, where a female kills another female. But that was just what I was thinking, because I had never heard of that myself. And as you're saying, it's not something that we use in the United States.
Right. And to my knowledge, that's not necessarily it. To my knowledge,
okay.
To my knowledge, it really just means the homicide of a female. And then it applies to a bunch of different situations.
All right. Okay. Tori's Brain Games, brother, I see you. Thank you for being here. Make sure you guys check out Tori's Brain Games channel. Go to Melanin. Let's get to it. In terms of the expedition, when you have someone who commits a crime, who is a United States citizen, some sort of crime or some type of someone gets killed or something of this nature happens in another country, what are the extradition laws, treaty laws between the United States and Mexico as you know it currently, maybe in past?
All righty. So we have a current treaty. So the United States of America has a current treaty with Mexico. The most version of that treaty being the 1978 version. And then that treaty was then kind of supplemented, if you will, with a memorandum in 1998 that was issued by then President Bill Clinton, really kind of geared towards the war on drugs and kind of trying to encourage Mexico-U.S. cooperation in that. But the one that is significant to us is the 1978 treaty. And that treaty outlines what has to happen for extradition in this type of instance.
Wow. Now, a lot of people are wondering, how does the FBI play a role? We know that Mexico, if I'm correct, put out a warrant for a arrest of, I believe it was Dejanay Jackson. Of course, people are wondering, why didn't the warrants go after all of them? Certainly there were other people allegedly that were complicit in this situation. You had one individual, I think it was Malik, who was the one on the camera saying fight back. None of these people did anything to stop what transpired. How does it work when Mexico or any country, the Empire Esquire, when any country issues a warrant? legally, how does our country usually respond to that from a legal point of view?
So here's what I will say first about whether or not warrants for arrest were issued for, all
Yes.
of the other persons who were there. So particularly when you refer to extradition, there is
Okay,
a
expedition.
very, yeah, extradition. Particularly when you refer to extradition, there is a very high standard of proof involved in extradition. Particularly because, especially as the United States of America, as a sovereign, we have an interest in protecting our nationals and protecting our citizens. So, if another country is going to request that we send our citizen to them for prosecution, there's a high burden of proof there. So, in order for them to really be able to prove that everyone on the trip should be sent back to Mexico, they would have to be able to meet that burden of proof. And so, if hypothetically they only issued an arrest warrant for Dejanay, then they would have done that because they only could meet that burden of proof for Dejanay.
Okay. Now, this is the $1 million question that I think people, and I want to speak with your girl, Marcella, gave me a $20 super chat. My sister, thank you.
Thank you for the
And
super
because
chat.
because of that, I have this little piece for you shortly, right now.
Thank you for the super chat.
Information is power.
Thank you for the super chat.
Tell the truth.
Thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate that. Check out her channel. She has a great channel. She's a very big supporter of what I do over here, and I really appreciate you. Now, the Empower Esquire, I got to ask you this very serious question. Because we, as Americans, we all kind of have our opinions about what happened. We all feel that they all should pay the price. If Mexico is issuing a warrant for Dejanay Jackson only, and the rest of them are here in the United States, I believe in North Carolina, the media was looking for them. They got themselves off of social media. They changed their phone numbers. They're not answering doors. And we all witnessed, or we all have heard these things that are happening. If the FBI is getting involved, or the Department of State is getting involved, do you see a chance that the rest of them, whether it be Winter, right, Elise, Khalid Cooks, Malik, Nazi Wiggin, could we see them walk away without any law or any type of punishment in the United States for what their role in that situation down there in Mexico? Is there any way that we could see them be prosecuted in some way or dealt with legally in some way in America?
So yes, but before I delve into that, I want
Okay.
to clarify something because this is another one of those nuances that isn't really being explained. So
Okay.
Mexico issuing an arrest warrant, as I said, it kind of symbolizes that they only feel they have the burden of proof for Dejanay, which makes sense because Dejanay is the person allegedly on video.
Mm-hmm.
However, issuing the arrest warrant is not it. That's not the end of the process.
Okay.
So Mexico has to take that arrest warrant. They have to add the medical reports. They have to maybe add an affidavit about the video or a copy of the video. They have
Yes.
to add a statement from a Mexican prosecutor, whatever they call their prosecutors in Mexico, right? They have to add a statement from their diplomacy, a statement from their sovereign government, and they have to compile all of these things into a motion, an official and formal request for extradition.
Okay.
They have to send that over to the United States of America, and then the U.S. reviews that and decides whether or not to extradite. The
Okay.
U.S. does not have to extradite. So let's say Mexico prepares this whole motion, they file it into a federal court in the U.S., it's received, it's reviewed, right? And the U.S. says, you know what? I don't think that we'll extradite Dejanay. What's her name? Jackson, I think?
Yeah, Jackson.
Right. So they have an option. They have two options. They can, one, extradite her, or they can, two, put her on trial here in the United States of America. They don't have to extradite her. So that kind of answers the first part. Now, the second part as to Nazir Wiggins and everyone else, technically they could be tried here in the US even if Dejanay isn't. So hypothetically, if Dejanay is extradited to Mexico, could Nazir Wiggins and everyone else be tried here in the United States of America? Yes. This is something that I prefaced yesterday when I did a breakdown on my channel, and we looked at the treaty and discussed, how the treaty works as far as jurisdiction. And
Yes.
what I said to everyone is, remember that things don't happen in a vacuum. When someone allegedly commits a crime, there is always something surrounding that incident. So the physical incident happened in Mexico, where allegedly Dejanay jumped onto Shanquella and physically assaulted her. But then everyone came back to the US. And according to reports and according to media outlets, when everyone came back to the US, they began to lie in concert about what happened.
Right.
Now, under the law, that's called conspiracy. The allegation is that they came back and they began to say that she had alcohol poisoning. They began to say that she seemed fine, but then all of a sudden she, wasn't fine. And they, in concert, allegedly began to lie about what happened. So that in itself is its own criminal accusation that happened on U.S. soil.
So let's say this. Let me ask another twist to this. So let's say some of those individuals that you just named, that I named, they as we know, they've come back to America, and let's say they didn't necessarily do anything physically that led to her death, but they come back to the United States and they lied, meaning you're watching someone be assaulted and you did not intervene. This is why I don't call them friends. You did not intervene to stop the assault on Shanquella Robinson, allegedly, as we, because we didn't see the additional video of what someone did after the fact, but we do know that we have a young lady with a broken vertebrae and a broken neck, and we know that it takes a lot of power, a lot of strength to do that to someone. So let's say they come back to the States and they lied to the mother, or they lied to the authorities. They could still, they could still stand some penalty, even if they didn't actually take her life themselves. But the fact that they're trying to hide evidence or hide the truth, is that right?
That is correct. They could still stand. And again, it comes down to the law within. Well, technically, the federal law would apply, right? But state law also always applies as well, right?
Okay.
But it would depend on the individual laws. However, technically, as I said, if they came back and the allegations are true, that they all in concert, right, lied together about what happened, that would mean that they observed the fatal injury of a person. They observed that fatal injury being caused intentionally by someone else, and then they all agreed in concert to lie about how that happened. And under our laws in the United States of America, that is conspiracy. Under our laws in the United States of America, that could be considered an accessory after the fact, right? That could be considered obstruction of justice. There are 50 million different types of laws that would say what you just did there is illegal.
Okay. Wow. Empower Esquire, can you break down to the people listening and people that will be listening to this after the fact, what is the area in the law that we're not looking at that people need to pay attention to as it relates to this case? Because it has so many different twists to it. Is there anything that you think that people are not paying attention to?
Yes, I think people are very misinformed and uninformed about the theory of extradition and about how extradition actually works.
Okay.
I want to address someone in the comments. I usually don't, but I got time today.
Okay.
We all know that obstruction and murder are two different things. I was not saying that they are the same. And please stop causing a ruckus in the chat and saying a bunch of things that is causing confusion.
First of all, let's just break this down right now.
Yes. So back to my original point.
But just let me say this right now. I have to.
Yes.
The Empower Esquire is an attorney at law. She knows what the hell she's talking about. A lot of us don't understand these differences. We have, see, this is the thing, Empower Esquire, and I have to fault myself for this too, because I find myself making these same mistakes. We keep putting the lens of America and how our laws work here and that lens on what's happening in Mexico. And I'm going to show everybody today, pretty soon, that Mexico has a lot of different issues. I'm also going to show you the video with the lead attorney talking to someone who's from Mexico, telling you how different things are. So, Empower Esquire, what I want to say to you is that this is what we do as Americans. We always look at things from the legal or from the lens of our culture in America, no matter what race we are. That's what we do. And can you please, as I want you to break down what you were trying to say, can you tell us some of the legal nuances, if you can, the differences? There's some things that are just so different about how we operate in America versus how they're operating in Mexico.
Right. You're absolutely correct with that. It is very different. So my original point was that there really isn't much common knowledge as to what extradition is or how it works. And earlier, someone said in the chat, extradition is a very complicated process. And I thought, yes. And most people don't know that. This process, if they submit the official formal motion requesting that Dejanay be extradited, it is no quick process. It is no easy process. She will be able to retain counsel. She will be able to oppose this request for her extradition and defend herself and say, I should not be extradited. It's an entire process. So that's the main thing that I think pop culture doesn't really get, because they're expecting things to happen right now.
Right.
And extradition is a lengthy process. And then when you're talking about interacting with a country such as Mexico,
yes,
where you were saying, well, what's the difference between the way we operate in the US and the way Mexico operates? Well, the biggest difference that I can think of is we think our justice system is slow. Yeah, right. Countries like Mexico have a system that is even slower than ours.
Facts.
And we think our system is slow. Remember,
Facts.
here in the US, we have the right to a speedy trial, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have these constitutional rights that say, I have the right to have counsel. I have the right to have you arraign me within a certain amount of hours if you retain me. I have the right to that I be released on bond. And a lot of these other countries do not have the same rights in place.
Right.
Most certainly don't have the right to speedy trial. So this could be a long, long road.
Miss Corey B, what's going on? Well, let me just say this to you, because the alleged statements that were put out there by some of the investigations that are happening in Mexico by the reporter Gerardo is that they're going to present her with the evidence that's against her, that she may not have a jury trial in Mexico, that it may just be decided by a judge down there, and that she may have to wait 3 to 6 months potentially for them to do more investigation before they even get to any type of decision on her. Now, I don't know. Now, you are a lawyer. Have you personally heard of situations in Mexico or other countries where you have horrific situations like this, where there's not a jury trial? It's basically you fighting against the evidence that's presented to you, and then you have just a judge in that country who's going to make all decisions.
So I couldn't speak to bench trials in other countries, but I have seen bench trials in the US. And it is possible to have a trial where the fact finder or the jury is the judge. Now, I will say that again, in the US, we have rights. You know, we have this constitution that has amassed all of these rights. And so, in the US, for certain types of crimes, you have the right to a trial by jury, right?
Okay.
But you can always waive the right to that trial. So I have observed many bench trials where there was either a waiver of the trial by jury or it wasn't serious enough of a crime for a trial by jury. And when you have a bench trial, it just means the judge, as I said, is the jury. The judge is the fact finder. The
Okay.
judge listens to all of the testimony, and then the judge renders a verdict.
And once again, you do have experience as a prosecutor, right? And you've also worked in defense as well. Is that right?
That is correct. And
I just
that
want to
is-
remind people, because
Yeah,
of
yeah,
course
that's
you're going to have people that's going to come on the stream and they're going to question, you know how this works. We've been through this before. People are going to question. See, this is the problem. I'm keeping it real with you. Black people, we have a really serious problem with respecting the credibility and the professionalism and the background of credentialed black people in any damn field. But when it comes, if I had a white person up here who was a lawyer, I'm just keeping it 100% real, y'all wouldn't question them because we're so culturally conditioned to marginalize and underestimate and undervalue black professionals because we deep down inside, subconsciously and consciously have some forms, not all of us, but some of us have some forms of self-hate, and we internalize our self-hate on ourselves, onto our own people. And when black people who are credentialed are telling you like it is, you rather run to the white man's ice because you believe the white man ice is colder.
Tell the truth.
And I had to say that. Now let's continue. The Empire Esquire, can you once again, because people probably don't get this too, maybe, the expedition treaties between the United States and Mexico have changed over the years. I put up here earlier that there was a treaty in 1861, but it has changed and morphed over the years. Can you remind people of that? And that particular case that you were telling me about before we went live, that you can give as example.
Absolutely. Thank you, Info, for defending me as you always do when I come onto your channel. I have to second what you said. I only get other African-American people arguing with me about the law. And usually they are not an attorney. I am not sure why. I don't know why. But it only ever happens to me in Black spaces that I get people belittling me, belittling my qualifications and education and arguing with me. And it's happening in the chat right now that you have people arguing with me. Here's the thing. This is not my personal opinion. This is the law. Maybe you don't like it, and I'm sorry if you don't, but I'm not up here giving you my personal opinion. Okay, so now on to extradition.
Right.
So,
Let's emphasize that. She would be doing a disservice if she starts giving you emotional opinion. I didn't bring the Empire Esquire to the channel today, ladies and gentlemen, to give you the emotional opinion. I brought her to give you the legal opinion. That's why it says on the thumbnail and on the title, the legal ramification, the legal perspective. Go ahead, the Empire Esquire.
Right. So moving on to extradition, and I believe, Info, you were saying if I had some insight on whether or not this has happened before and et cetera, et cetera. So extradition in a case that is kind of similar to this has actually happened before.
Okay.
To Info about it previously, I said 2001 because I was just going off of memory, but actually it happened in 2011. So actually back in 2011, the Office of the United States Attorney, Southern District of California, right? Back then, the United States Attorney was Laura E. Duffy, not sure
okay.
or not, but I highly right? And she released a press release saying that we have decided to extradite 2 U.S. citizens back to Mexico to face the charge of aggravated homicide for the death of 2 other U.S. citizens in Mexico, right? So listen to how that is a lot like what we're dealing with now. All of these people were in Mexico. Allegedly, 2 people were killed. Mexico decided that it was aggravated homicide, and the U.S. decided to extradite the 2 remaining U.S. citizens back to Mexico and have them stand trial.
Okay.
So has happened before. It has been done. It could be done in this instance, but as I said, they don't have to. They don't
Okay.
have to extradite anyone. They have the
Okay.
option of putting the U.S. citizen on trial here in the U.S. And that is, as I said, where the U.S. being a sovereign comes in. They do not have to hand over their own citizen.
Okay, I just want to say something because the chat room is off the hook today, and I appreciate the mods in the chat room and everything like that. I don't have a problem with people asking questions. You know how we do over here, ladies and gentlemen. We just don't like people doing things to create a disruption out of things that are not based in fact. So you can ask even if you have a difference of opinion, that's okay if people have a difference of opinion. But I always say, if you're going to have a difference of opinion, just be respectful about it. No, I don't have a problem with anybody asking any questions. But if you don't get the answer that you want at the same time, let's be cooler heads. I don't like drama in the chat room. I don't like drama on my channel. I'm not a drama channel at all. We're a channel of intelligence over here, but I do want people to ask questions. You can have a difference of opinion. I'm going to say it again, but just don't be nasty and rude about it. Let's be respectful to one another. Look, at the end of the day, a young black young lady of 25 years of age was killed. So we shouldn't even be fighting with each other in that chat room, because we should be trying to do what? Learn, get information, and figure out what happened, and give our prayers to the family and hope for justice and want justice and demand justice. That's what this is really all about, folks. It's about Shanquella Robinson. It ain't about me. It ain't about everybody in the chat. It ain't about your personal. It's about what the law is, and and learning about it. And this is why we're doing this show today. Go on, the Empire Esquire, and thank you for the super chat last call. And I'll do this for you as well. And here we go.
Thank you for the super chat.
Time to run it up. I wake up. I wake up, flex, thumb down now, check, no drip, this wet, time to run it up, no sleep, no rest, might crash, might wreck, but first I stretch, time to run it up, I wake up, flex, thumb down now, check, no drip, this wet, time to run it up, no sleep, no rest, might crash, might wreck, but first I stretch, time to run it up. 9 out of 10 roll through my hands, I'm by my lonely. Turned to a savage, now my baby wants to hold me. I love my fans, don't need no friends, I got my own.
All right, let's get back on track here. So that particular case that you were talking about, that a lot of people may or may not know about, can you continue breaking that down in terms of, it was a case, again, let's just remind people, there was a case similar to the Shanquella Robinson case. Just can you summarize that again?
So I'm actually referencing the press release.
Press release.
Right. So I'll just go back to it now and kind of give everyone the gist of it. So it says press release summary, November 21st, 2011. USA, and by that I mean United States Attorney, Laura E. Duffy announced that 2 United States citizens were recently ordered extradited to Mexico to face charges of aggravated homicide in the deaths of 2 U.S. citizens in Mexico, right? So, as I said, we've done this before. In the first case, Victor Ernest Childs, a 52-year-old United States citizen, was ordered extradited to Mexico to face charges of aggravated homicide. According to an order by U.S. Magistrate Judge William V. Gallo, Victor Childs is wanted to stand trial in Mexico for the alleged killing of Karen Ann Noland Childs.
Okay.
So here we have a U.S. citizen went to Mexico, allegedly killed this woman, came back to the U.S. and was sent back to Mexico to stand trial. Now, the second case is Cruz Dominguez, aka Cruz, a 28-year-old United States citizen who was also ordered extradited to Mexico to face charges of aggravated homicide. According to an order by a U.S. magistrate judge, he's also wanted in Mexico for the alleged killing of a man named Joshua Dietrich in Tijuana.
Okay.
Same incident. Now, in this in this case in particular, this young man went out to a nightclub in Tijuana. He allegedly got into an altercation with another man while he was there, another U.S. citizen. He kills that man, and then he goes back to the U.S., and they send him back to Mexico for Mexico to put him on trial.
Wow. Whew. Let me ask you this question. If they were to try in the legal courts in the United States, Winter, Elise, Khalid, Malik, and Wiggins, what type of time or would they be looking at in an American legal system?
Well, I hope you don't mind, but before I answer your question,
Okay,
I want to say
okay.
hi to a few people.
No
a few
problem at
people in
all.
The chat that I've been noticing you, and I know that I see you over on my channel as well. Hi, Just Natural. Hi, Pretoria Afro. Hi, Kimberly Callahan. Hi, Doug. Doug Mott over on my channel too.
What's going on, Doug? What's going on? Yeah, he's awesome.
Hi, Peggy Royster. I think that's everybody I noticed for now. Okay. So to answer your question as to what could happen, that depends on the charges, right? How much time they're potentially facing is going to depend on what they're charged with. Conspiracy in different jurisdictions, it can be a very serious charge, but it depends on what the conspiracy relates to, right? You could
Yes.
it could be conspiracy to cover up the homicide after the fact, or it could be conspiracy to premeditate the homicide. It could be a lot of different elements. So how much time they would be facing depends on what they're being charged with.
Okay. What do you... This is the $1 million question. We don't know because a lot of speculation around this. The investigative reporter, Gerardo, he stated on, I think, lead attorney's channel that they do have Dejanay Jackson in custody. We haven't seen mainstream media in America really go that far and say, yeah, they got her and bam, 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 and they got the picture of her getting put in the car and all of that. But if the warrant is being put out there and the feds are involved, what the FBI usually want to let people know would they move kind of quietly behind the background without Americans knowing, or the American press? I mean, how does that work? Does the feds usually do things sort of in secret like that? I'm probably asking an obvious question. They probably do a lot of things in secret, but would they, capture someone, take someone in like her and do it kind of quietly without it being, put out there to the press so quickly?
Well, that depends. It depends on the case. It depends on the sensitivity of the case. And I would say in this instance, with a case that has been in the press as much as it has been, but more importantly, in the internet, on the blogs, on the social media, I think the case that's been on social media as much as this one, they might have reason to be protective. They might have reason to say, you know what, we are not saying anything until she is actually being extradited. This is the kind of case where you may not hear anything until you see a DOJ press release that says, oh, Dejanay Jackson extradited. And then you're like, whoa. So
then
they keep everything under wraps.
Okay, so Doug told me, and there's people that believe that it was false information. But what you're saying is that they could very well have her under wraps and just not let the press know, give no press relief, and keep it because I'm keeping it real with y'all today. The FBI and some of our law enforcement agencies like this that are in the feds, they operate silently. I know this for a fact because I have 2 fraternity brothers, maybe 3, who work for Homeland Security, and they have told me personally, without details, that they have nabbed very high profile people and never told nobody knew anything about it until they were ready to tell do a press conference or whatever, but they had already had that person nabbed up before me, you, anybody would even know about it. Long before we would even know about it. The reason why I bring this up is because this happened in Mexico. And whether people believe it or not, we have someone on the ground level down there who's been interviewed. Now, we can all question credibility, of course, but he's telling us how Mexico works, that there's information that he's getting. And I'm going to play that video at some point today, ladies and gentlemen, that he's getting information that American press is not getting the nuances of because he's at the ground level. I just want to put that out there for people just to think. American press is not always the be all to end all that we know. Matter of fact, the Empire Esquire, I have seen people on social media break things down that the mainstream media was very late on. Very, very late on. But I'll just leave that alone for now. What other issues in this case, as a lawyer, that interests you the most, Empire Esquire, the thing that most intrigues you as a lawyer from a legal point of view that people need to be aware of as well?
So I'll add to the point that you made about whether or not she's actually arrested. I've been telling everyone, hey, listen, there has been no confirmation that she was arrested.
Okay.
So Doug has made a point, he's made a valid point. There hasn't been any law enforcement, to my knowledge. There hasn't been any law enforcement confirmation that she was arrested. However, Info also made a point. She could be arrested, and for some reason they have decided, hey, let's keep this under wraps for now, right? That is also a possibility. I will say, though, that all of the alleged stories that I've heard, they have said something about the FBI arresting her. And I will say to that end, usually in these types of extradition cases, the person is not arrested by the FBI. So when you talk about something that made my antennas go up, if you will, when I'm hearing these stories and I hear the FBI arrested her, I think, that might not be true, right?
Okay.
Usually in these instances, remember, the FBI themselves, they operate more so on a higher level, if you will, than your typical law enforcement. What I've seen in extradition cases is I have seen the U.S. Marshals, right? Or Marshal, however you want to refer to it, because could be adding an S there. But I've seen a Marshal be assigned, right? And then the Marshals go out and pick up this person. I have never actually heard of the FBI themselves arresting someone.
Right. And let me also say this. Very, very, very true. Also, this is where people were kind of questioning the article in Mexico where they were saying that Interpol arrested her when, in fact, the Interpol, they don't make arrests. They use local law enforcement is the ones that will pick that person up. I mean, let me let you speak on this. How does that work, the Empire Esquire, when you have someone who's internationally been put on the red alert that if this person is in this country or travels, you got to nab them? How does that really work legally?
Sorry, my mouse got stuck.
Oh, okay.
So how it works legally?
Yes.
Paperwork. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. So you got
how it works. Okay. So how it works legally is the paperwork is completed, right? The complaint for extradition or the motion for extradition is sent over by Mexico or whichever country. It's filed in federal court. Then a federal judge reviews that. They order, yes, this extradition is valid. We will extradite, right? Then all that paperwork is turned into a warrant, and that warrant is given to law enforcement that will actually make the arrest. And as I said, usually that's the U.S. Marshals, right?
Okay.
I've never actually heard of that being the FBI themselves.
Right.
I haven't.
Right.
But I'm sure if they wanted to arrest someone, they could.
Right. Well, let me do this. I got to ask you this question, and thank you for the super chat, Kitty G. I'm going to give you a super chat celebration in a little bit, but this is a question that someone threw out there, and I think this comes from the investigative reporter. It's Truth Strong Warrior says this. This is from, I think, the investigative reporter who is Spanish speaking in Mexico. He said that we will not hear until she is in front of a judge in Mexico. He said that Mexico put special instructions on the warrant, and that's why we don't see anything. What do you think about that, the Empower Esquire?
So it is possible that the U.S. has decided not to issue any statement about Dejanay Jackson until she appears in front of a judge in Mexico. It's possible that they do not want the press to muddy the case. It is possible that they do not want to put Dejanay in any danger while she is in holding wherever she is, right? It is possible that they have decided to cooperate in that way and to keep everything under wraps until she appears in front of a judge in Mexico. It is possible. I will say that. Okay.
Let me go ahead and Kitty G for giving me that $5 super chat, which I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. And for you, here we go.
Thank you for the super chat.
Time to run it up. I wake up. Yeah. I wake up, flex, I'm down now. Check, no drip, this wet. Time to run it up. No sleep, no rest. Might crash, might wreck. But first I stretch. Time to run it up. I wake up, flex, thumb down now. Check, no drip, this wet. Time to run it up. No sleep, no rest. Might crash, might wreck. But first I stretch. Time to run it up. 9 out of 10, roll through my hands, I'm by my lonely. Turn to a savage, now my baby wants to hold me.
Thank you again for the super chat. It always goes to support the channel and what we do over here. Let's get back to this. In terms of Dejanay Jackson, whether we believe that she's already in custody, and I said this before, you just never know what could be the case because they don't have to tell you any damn thing, really. Until they're ready to tell us what they've done, what they haven't done, and what have you. So we're just going to have to keep our eyes open, our minds open, and to stay on top of this. Now, this is what I don't understand, and everybody has been wondering about this. I just don't understand why the Mexican government or the police, I don't understand why they allow all of those folks to just willy-nilly go back to America. And this is where people get into the contradictions that maybe someone got paid off, the police, someone's lying, what have you. But if this happened in America, if this happened on American soil, what would have been the obvious thing legally, the Empower Esquire?
So that's an interesting question. I think many people have wanted to ask that question, but they haven't done it as eloquently as you have. And I think we all wondered that, like, well, what happened, right? Because we imagined that the authorities reported to the scene. So then how do these people get to just leave? So I'll say what usually happens in the US in general, right? Let's say this incident would have happened in the US and the police were called and they were told, hey, we have someone here. We need an ambulance. She's, in a bad way. She's unresponsive, right? The ambulance would show, and more than likely, 911 via police dispatch would also report, right? So you would have law enforcement there and you would have EMTs there. The law enforcement would at that time assess the situation and they would say, hey, I need to speak to you, and you, were you here? Can you tell me what you think happened here? Then law enforcement would make at the scene this kind of decision as to whether or not they are going to try to talk to people later or whether or not they're going to say, oh, no, we need to bring some people down to the station now, right? The latter decision is a decision I think they would make if they immediately sensed foul play. If they immediately thought, oh, this isn't right, they would then probably take people down for questioning. Now, once they were suspicious of people, once they had suspicions that there was foul play, one of the measures they would take is kind of warning everyone, hey, you're going to be needed for more questioning. You're not permitted to, leave town. You're not permitted to skip out and try to go to another country, nothing of that nature, because you are a person of interest in this investigation and we may need you to come back in.
Right.
That's our procedure.
Alexi, Miss Davis here, she says, I just see it as it's in one of their vacation areas. They don't want attention drawn to this. It's where they make their money. They just wanted to sweep it under the rug. They're probably not. That's one of the things that people are saying on social media, as you already know, that it looks like, allegedly that they don't want the tourism to be, because that's a hot tourist area in Cabo, one of their most popular. And they don't want this incident to wear away American citizens and outside people from traveling there. And I have to agree. Yeah, they want to protect their bottom line. But at the end of the day, this whole thing should have never happened. There's so many contradictions in this. Now, you've been talking about this on your channel, The Empower Esquire. Can you give our folks here listening, ladies, men, everyone out there that's listening, can you give us sort of the perspective that you're kind of writing on your channel, areas that you're touching on? Can you give us a nice summary of where you've been going with this whole situation on your channel specifically?
So the main thing that I've been trying to stress on my channel is that the law has provided for what is going to happen here. So there's no need to speculate, right? There is an extradition treaty that tells us exactly what should happen, how it's going to happen, when it's going to happen, right? And then we already know that law enforcement is involved. We know that there is an ongoing investigation. So the biggest thing I've been stressing on my channel is to stop speculating, to stop gossiping, because it hurts these cases and it hurts these investigations. I mentioned to everyone that recently, and I didn't say the celebrity's name because I didn't want to, and I still don't. But recently there was a celebrity on trial for SA. That's what I call it because, YouTube, right? Multiple women accusing this man of SA. Mm-hmm. The trial resulted in a mistrial because of internet buffoonery, because of the ridiculous constant chatter online. Someone who has a blog decided to go to the trial physically. There was someone else there who was familiar with the person's blog. That person decided to take very detailed notes about the jury, about each juror, and start handing it off to the blog and having these conversations with the blog. And the judge felt that that was dangerous and a challenge to the case. And the entire case is now a mistrial. Now, the prosecution will have to try that case all over again. Those witnesses will have to relive that all over again.
Wow. Let me ask you this. Now, maybe I asked this question already. In terms of the mother and the father, now we know that the law in the United States, they could, tell me if I'm wrong or if right, they could take things into their own hands to make sure that those other 5 are held accountable for whatever role that they played in doing what they did or what they did not do. But couldn't the family, the mother and father, file some sort of civil action against them? Because I know there's criminal and then there's civil, right? Break that down for me.
Yes. Here you come with this is why you're the GOAT. Here you come with the high level, next level questions. So absolutely, the estate of Shanquella Robinson, her parents, her family, her siblings could sue in civil court. They could allege wrongful death, and they could sue everyone who was there in Cabo and say, you led to the death of my daughter. Yes.
Now, let me ask this other question. It's just me. I've got some friends who work for Homeland Security, but wouldn't it make sense? Now, let me ask you this question. This is what it is I want to ask. The media in Charlotte, North Carolina, you've got reporters that's been knocking on the door where they can't get them to come out and talk. They have changed their phone numbers. They said in Charlotte, North Carolina, that the police only want to talk to those other 5. Okay. They didn't necessarily say in Charlotte that they were going to arrest them, they said, according to Charlotte's WTC, whatever they call that out there, According to them, they're saying it's the FBI that has to take them within custody. Right or wrong? You tell me. I don't understand. Can't they somehow get all of these folks and then start, for lack of a better word of interrogation, start questioning them separate from each other so that they can't? Because it seems to me that the longer that they've been out back home, that would give them ample time to get their stories together. You don't want people having all this time to talk to each other on the under and get their stories together. You want to get them separated very quickly to see what the inconsistencies are in their statements. Don't you find, and we don't know this because we don't know what law enforcement, but don't you find that interesting, or we haven't gotten any information about them tracking these folks down and talking to them separately to see if there's inconsistencies in their statements? And of course, we haven't even heard from any of their parents of these 5. Obviously, they don't want to be shamed by people, but now that may not be a legal question I'm asking you, but what are your thoughts?
You know, my thoughts on that are, we kind of wish these things would move quicker. You know, remember my initial statement of these things don't move very fast, right? And it's a double-edged sword. When
Right.
you live in a country that's such like a huge behemoth like we do, the United States of America, a lot of our rights are a double-edged sword. So like, for example, double jeopardy, right? It's good that we have the right to not be tried twice for the same crime by the same agency, but it means that sometimes guilty people get away. Same
Right.
in here. We have rights as US citizens. So the government and the FBI and law enforcement, they couldn't just pounce on these people the minute that they returned home, right?
Right.
Because at that point, all they had was he say, she say, and what happened, and did this happen? So what law enforcement would have to do is they would have to communicate with Mexico, get solid factual information to get the probable cause needed for them to even say, okay, we'll expend the resources to look into this.
Yes. Wow. Let me ask, this is and I know, Kiji, thank you for that $2 super chat. I know that Nancy, Grace, whatever her name, I know she's talked about it. I know she's on television. You know that I understand what she's saying, but there's something about this that doesn't, first of all, this is for everybody, including the Empower Esquire. Were you surprised by how the feds got involved in this so quick? Because when it comes to black people, and specifically black women, when black people go missing, black men, black women and specifically go missing, there's hardly any noise about it every single day. The mass media doesn't even make big noise about it, right? Like they do when white girls go missing. And I got to be honest, because the mother of Shanquella Robinson has said out of her own mouth that she believes that it was black social media bloggers that have kept the name in this situation alive as it relates to Shanquella Robinson in the horrors of what happened to her in Cabo, Mexico. What are your thoughts about that?
So, holidays, family, my dog's making
It's
noise.
okay. You're at home.
It is what it is. So
He's defending your honor.
everyone, if you're new to me, I have a little 5-pound Yorkie named Mac who thinks that he is a pit bull.
Okay.
And, goes very, very hard to defend me. So
Tell the truth.
I actually think that it took a second for law enforcement to jump on this. I mean, everyone thinks it happened quickly, but for me, and maybe it's because I felt so deeply concerned about this case, maybe that's why. It's kind of like when you're watching the clock. But I remember first hearing about this and thinking, oh my goodness, I hope they get involved. I hope they get involved. And for me, it felt like forever before they got involved. So it didn't feel quick to me.
Okay.
But I will say that, yes, the blogs, the social media, they really pushed Shanquella's story and got her out there. Now I fear, though, that they are doing more harm than good. They pushed the story. They got what happened to her out there. They got law enforcement involved. But now they are pushing narratives about people getting arrested. They are pushing narratives about potential motives. Now I think they're getting dangerous.
Okay. Now, I have two legal questions to ask you, and I think this pertains to Mexico. There's something called common law system. Are you familiar with that?
In Mexico?
Yeah. I think Mexico has a common law system, or maybe, is there a common law system? Maybe I'm asking a silly question. Is there a common law system in America?
So common law is law that has been decided over years and years and years of precedent, if you will. It's kind of complicated to explain, but that's
Okay.
the easiest way to explain it, right?
Okay, because from what I understand, Mexico has some form of this. Let me ask you another question. Are you familiar with this code right here?
System. It sounds like something that I probably learned in law school, but that I didn't actually need.
Okay, because they have this sort of system in Mexico. Now let's get into the areas of jurisdiction and investigative issues. Jurisdiction. Let's remind people of what jurisdiction means, because this did not, once again, it did not happen on American soil, let me ask this question. Let me frame this the right way. Because Mexico has the jurisdiction, and correct me if I'm wrong, that would be the reason why, whether we like it or not, that the other 5 individuals in this situation, Khalid, Wiggins, Malik, Elise, Winter, that would be the reason why they have not technically been arrested in America right now? Or am I wrong?
You're right-ish, but then you're also wrong. So
Okay.
here's the thing. So the U.S., as I've said, has an interest in protecting its citizens and its nationals, right? So there are federal laws on the books that protect as a U.S. citizen, even when you're abroad, right? But
Okay.
the argument becomes that in order for any type of prosecuting agency to charge someone, they have to be able to articulate that whatever it is that happened to you falls under a certain statute, right? That's how they bring in the jurisdiction.
Okay.
And it's a more tenuous argument to make when it comes to this kind of situation, which is
Okay.
why I was saying it's easier to argue these people allegedly committed after the fact to a homicide, or these
Okay.
people allegedly conspired to cover up a homicide, right? Those are easier cases to make because those are things that actually happened here. It is definitely not impossible for the U.S. to claim jurisdiction over what happened to Shanquella, because you have a U.S. citizen who was allegedly killed by other U.S. citizens. It is just a more right, but it's
that
more
is a
difficult
key.
argument to make.
Wow. Wait a minute. That is very, let me see, let me put my thinking cap on. That makes a lot of sense. So it wasn't like Shanquella Robinson went to Mexico with these individuals and she got killed by someone in Mexico that's a Mexican citizen. She got killed by an American. So the United States, or would it be the Department of State that would have that jurisdiction to be able to come in and say, well, wait a minute, this is an American citizen who was killed by other American citizens. So now can they take this whole thing away from Mexico? To a certain, could that happen?
So
a speculative statement I'm making.
Yeah. So technically, it would be the Department of Justice, right?
Department of Justice.
It will be the Department of Justice. And as I was saying, they can do that. They can take this case even under the extradition treaty. So remember, they have multiple different lines here. Under the extradition treaty, the United States government, the Department of Justice can say, hey, listen, we are not going to send our citizens back to Mexico for trial. In this instance, we are going to try them here. Mm-hmm. They always have that option. They have the option. Once they get the information from Mexico that proves that there's an arrest warrant and there's this and there's that, they will have the option of trying them and putting them on trial here. Now, let's say they don't get the information from Mexico. That's where the latter half comes in when we talk about jurisdiction and some of the things that happened after they came back, and how the Department of Justice can try to reach over into the events that happened in Mexico by using different types of arguments when it comes to U.S. citizens going abroad, right? But like I said, it's a harder argument to make. So if they were trying these people in the U.S. without all of the information from Mexico regarding extradition, they would probably just go for conspiracy, accessory, things like that, right? That is a more solid argument to make. But if they get that request for extradition from Mexico and they have all of that information there, that triggers their choices. And then they can say, oh, we're going to try you for the homicide here in the U.S.
Okay, let me ask you this other question, because once again, this is people are all most of us have to go on. Realistically, that has really sparked this case from the beginning is the video that went viral. And I'm not going to show that. I've already gone through that before. The video of Shanquella Robinson being assaulted, or in this case, as we know, she's ended up dead. Now, what would be the legal ground that Daejhanae Jackson have to stand on? Could she say, hey, yes, we did have a fight. I woke her up out of her sleep and I had a fight with her, but that's as far as it went. Because what other argument legally would Daejhanae Jackson have? I'm just asking, counselor.
So hypothetically, and again, I try to stay away from too much speculation, but this is based upon the alleged video that is on the internet already, right? Hypothetically, Daejhanae Jackson could say, based upon what we've seen, that there was a physical altercation, but that after the altercation, Shanquella was fine and it was over. There was no more altercation. Well, that is where other witnesses and other evidence would come in, right? That is where it would be interesting to know if any of the other people there are testifying or have given a statement, because then you may have statements from other people there which say, no, Shanquella actually wasn't fine after that altercation. Or you may have statements from other people there who say, oh, Shanquella was fine after that altercation. Something else happened. So once the video ends, that is where witnesses and other police work is going to step in.
Because you figure, Empower Esquire, you figure when you have a scene like this, they're calling it femicide in Mexico. And ladies and gentlemen, I want to say this again, because the Empire Esquire had made this statement earlier in the stream. If you're just coming in right now, thank you for being here. And make sure you share the video as well, your social media, your Twitter, your Facebook, wherever you like to share this type of content. She made a statement that in America, we don't normally use the term, and tell me if I'm correct or wrong, the term femicide is not something that we tend to use as a term in the United States, if I'm correct or wrong about that, Empire Esquire.
So that is correct. It is not a term that we tend to use in the United States, at least not in this instance, right? Because some jail lawyers, jailhouse attorney is going to try to argue with us in the chat, okay? So it's not a term that we would use, at least not in this instance. In this instance, we would just say homicide, right? But in Mexico, femicide refers to the homicidal killing of a female.
Okay.
That is it. And then they have several different types of homicide. Femicide.
I just had to have you say that because I know there's new people coming into the chat and they may not have heard that from the beginning. But Raw B Privilege has just given me a $9 super chat, which I really appreciate you for that, sister. So with that said, let me give you some of this.
Thank you for the super chat.
Information is power.
Thank you for the super chat.
Tell the truth.
Thank you for the super chat.
Let's get back to it. I also want to be cognitive of your time, so I don't want to take up all your time today, the Empower Esquire. But I do have a couple more questions that I need to ask you. I do find it fascinating, Counselor, that there's a potential for the Department of Justice to come in and swoop down this case because it is two American citizens. It's American citizens. And we haven't heard about anyone else that lives down there jumping into the fray of this, of doing this to her. But I do find it interesting that you make a very good point that we have to be very mindful as content creators, bloggers, that we don't do anything that can impact the case. But at this point in time, we've all seen the viral video. We know that something went wrong. I know that common sense, the body, the bone structures are very powerful, and it takes brute force to break someone's back like that, vertebrae and neck. That just isn't just something that happens on a fly in a wind. What do you think? Have you ever known anyone who's been involved in any cases in Mexico? What do you think is going to happen when she goes before a judge in Mexico?
Well, more than likely, although Mexico's system is different, there are probably some basic elements that are the same.
Okay.
Right? So more than likely, when she appears before a judge in Mexico, she will be informed that she's been extradited, right? And even though she knows that, they'll state that for the record. They may even walk through the circumstances that led to her extradition. They will probably then at that point tell her, listen, you've been arrested for violation of this Mexican law and that Mexican law. And we are now moving forward with this case against you. They may ask her if she wants to solicit or if she wants to retain representation. And then they may, which I don't think so, because this would probably be an alleged homicide. But they may have some process by which they evaluate whether or not she will be detained while the case is resolved, or whether or not she has the possibility of being released.
Okay.
Of course, that would be in Mexico. She wouldn't be permitted to come back to the U.S. But
Okay.
I highly doubt that would happen in this case.
Now, we know, this is another question. We know, tell me if I'm wrong or right, that when you've been accused of a crime or you've been nabbed in a crime, is it still true that they will, they read you your rights and they tell you that you have the right to attain a counselor, a lawyer, and if you cannot afford one, that one will be appointed to you? Is that correct or wrong in America still?
That is correct in America. Now,
but in Mexico, go ahead. This is where I was going. See?
Now we don't know
Tell the truth.
whether or not they have the right to counsel in Mexico, but I'm going to tell you what, I don't think they do. And I'm going to tell you why. Most countries that do not have as high of a GDP as we have, meaning they're not as big of a financial behemoth as we are, most of them don't have the structure to accommodate providing free attorneys to everyone.
Yes.
So in many countries like Mexico, it's very possible that if you cannot afford an attorney, then you simply do not have one. Now, you may be able to get one at a reduced rate. That's possible.
Yes.
But getting one completely free, I don't believe that that's their current practice. I could be wrong. Again, I'm not Mexican, and I will stand corrected if I am wrong.
All right. Thank you. World Passport Bro, $2 super chat. Shanquella did not deserve. May she rest in peace. I want to say thank you for that super chat. Give you a clap. Thank you.
Thank you for the super chat.
Because the laws are different there. There's been changes from what I'm hearing, and just not a good place to be tried under these situations. None of this should have happened. Now, we talked earlier about, I mentioned earlier that you agreed with me that the family could take a civil suit out against the other 5. And
And let's be clear, info, not just the other 5. The family can sue the other 5. The family can sue the resort. Were they at a resort? I don't even remember if it was a resort.
Yeah, they were at a resort villa in
yes.
Cabo, Baja, California. I've been there before. They were at a resort, so they could now see. This is this is why I thank you for coming over here today. This is why, folks, we're trying to do our best to not allow our emotions, because I'm really pissed off about how this whole thing has happened to this young lady. But we're trying our best not to let the emotions take over everything and stay within logic and what the law is. Now, you're saying, repeat this to everybody, that the family can not only sue civilly the 5, but what can they do down there to that hotel?
They can also sue the resort if it were condos. If it were condos, and these condos were supposed to have some type of security, which in Cabo, I'm sure they did.
Oh, right? Yes, they do. Oh, yes, they do. I've been there.
They'll sue the owners of the condo and sue that security company. So not only can they sue the people who were there with Shanquella, they can sue anyone who had a legal duty to her as well. And that includes the owners of that property.
Wow. So the owners, and once again, thank you, Passport Bro, for the $2 super chat. Again, I'm gonna give you another clap.
Thank you for the super chat.
Wow. So they can go after the hotel, sue them separately, civilly, for the lack of good security. Now, wait a minute now. Now we're getting into it now. You've heard this already. I'm going to say this allegedly. We don't want to get into deep speculation, but I'm just saying this for the purpose. There's already been people that have put out there that the Dr. Beatrice. So there's a question about when was she alive? There was talk that she was alive 3 hours before she was pronounced dead. But then there was a question about, was the autopsy report giving proper time versus whether it was dying from drinking or dying from being brutally beaten? Could the family take out personal civil suits against the doctor, the police in question, if they're able to prove through a civil case that documents were not kosher? Now, I don't want to speculate. I know it sounds like I'm speculating, but I'm trying to say, couldn't the family take out lawsuits against those individuals if they think that something is inconsistent on the records? And we have all seen some portions of those records, at least on media and social media, that does seem to say something doesn't match up. What do you say, counselor?
So I would say to be mindful on that assertion, and here's why.
Yes.
So again, Mexico is different from the U.S., but in the U.S., our governmental entities, they have a certain level of immunity, right?
Okay.
So you can't just willy-nilly sue a government agency in the U.S. And if there's something similar in Mexico, they may have a certain level of immunity. Law enforcement may have a certain level of immunity, and the coroner's office may have a certain level of immunity. To break that immunity, the family would probably have to prove a pretty high level of terrible conduct. They have to prove all-out willful negligence. They may even have to prove bribes or something that takes it to the next level as far as there being gross misconduct for them to be able to pierce that veil of governmental immunity. And that protection is because the government is supposed to act in the interest of its people, right? And so the idea is, in order for the government to be able to do that, they need to have flexibility. They need to feel free to govern you without you suing them, for every little thing.
Okay.
There's a certain level of immunity that governments usually have, and Mexico might have that as well.
Okay. Now, to be mindful of your time today, because I want to make sure before you leave us at any time that we squeeze all the legal knowledge out of you. Is there anything, and I mean anything, that you need to tell the folks from a legal point of view, as a lawyer, as an attorney of law yourself, as it relates to this case, that we need to maybe get out of our conspiracies about our suspicion about when you just base it in legal terms. Is there anything that you can tell the truth about?
Tell the truth.
So I would say, as I've been saying, from the beginning, let's stop doing all of the gossiping about motive and why they may have done this and who had, money or who didn't have money, and because all of those things, as I said, they could harm the investigation. So my biggest thing is, yes, let's have a discussion. Let's keep her memory alive, but let's have our discussion be based in truth, in fact, in some level of actual confirmed details. Even this arrest situation, I've seen so many videos titled Dejanay arrested, and we know that they don't know that. We know they don't know that to be a fact. They can't know it to be a fact because it's not confirmed by law enforcement.
Well, I'm going to jump out the window and be honest here. I did do a video in which I jumped out the window with that information because of the fact that most of that information that we were getting and the media was questioning it was coming from Guerrero, the investigative reporter down in Mexico. He's the same one that was interviewed by the lead attorney. And he did say some things that were quite or appeared to be very compelling. And of course, mass media said that it was not verified. And I just want to be fair here. I do notice that mainstream media, sometimes when they don't get a story first and it comes out of social media, they do have a propensity to try to marginalize, underestimate, and undervalue people on social media who might be on to something. Now, this isn't legal talk that we're doing right now, folks. This is just the opinion right now. It's not the legal part. But I do notice that they do like to discredit those on social media who may be on to something because mainstream news sometimes are, let me just say, they like to monopolize the story so that they can set the narrative the way they want to set the narrative. And let's be honest, the Empire Esquire, nobody in mainstream media will give you the sort of breakdown, and you know this already, so I'm preaching to the choir, the sort of breakdown and give the certain intimacy to the story that we as black folks will give to the story. Right? They may just say it like it's slicing yesterday's bread, but we're emotional people. We will bring our emotions into it, which can sometimes lead to misinformation. But sometimes our emotion to the story brings our humanity to the story because we care about what's happening to our people, because we know that mainstream media really doesn't give a damn about what happens to black young ladies or even black young men. We've seen that when they had that laundry case where they talked about that young white girl day in and day out, while black women go missing left and right. So I just wanted to say that. Not as a way to rebut you in any kind of way, but it's just something that was on my mind.
No, it's totally fine, and as I said, sometimes we hear things and, we run with it and it is what it is, but I just don't recommend running with things that aren't verified because it could harm the
It can harm the case.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's my whole point. And that's the reason that a lot of these ongoing cases that people keep messaging me about, there's a reason that I'm not covering them anymore, right? Because sometimes when you continue to cover, when these cases get to a certain point, so for example, like the Brother Polite thing, he's headed into trial. I'm not talking about that case anymore. Mm-hmm. And I'm getting so many people messaging me about it. But when there is ongoing legal proceedings like that, I'm not saying anything.
Because you don't want to interfere. You don't want to cause the misinformation.
Here. And the interference isn't worth the views for me. And I mentioned that yesterday, that we're at a point in society where people do anything for views. they care less about interfering with the investigation and more about this video will get a lot of views. And it's sad.
Right. Well, I certainly, Sister Empower Esquire, I certainly believe that there are some bloggers out here who do have good intentions to want to bring this case to justice for Shanquella Robinson. I do believe there are those bloggers, and then there are those bloggers who may be, for whatever the reasons are, I can't speak for them, but there are bloggers that are looking for views. We know that. That's true. But I do believe that some of us, I think that's the reason why I wanted you on here today, because I jumped out the window with the other video and I wanted to clarify some things today with having you come on and give the legal opinion. And then I wanted people to hear from this reporter so that people can make their own opinions. Now, that doesn't mean that their opinions are going to be based on what's legal, because certainly you gave us a wealth of information that was based in legal basis, and that's what we need to really recognize. But I think what happened is when that video went viral, it did create a emotional storm for some people, obviously, because it was so vivid seeing how she was beaten and how you can hear people saying, fight back, yet nobody stopped the incident. And no matter what she was doing, there's claims that she was, causing problems amongst those ladies. It does not mean you should take someone's life at the end of the day. But I want to thank you for coming on board today. What's going on, Blue Jeans? Blue Jeans, I got to get your channel back into the algorithms. YouTube has a way of pushing people out of your algorithms and then you don't get them anymore. It's weird. But I really appreciate you coming on today. And I want to thank Mahogany Roots for giving me the $5 super chat as well. Appreciate you, sister. But, we've done videos together and I just really appreciate your perspective, your honesty, your realness. And, as usual, we have some bumps in the middle because once again, sometimes our people, not all of our people, but some of our people, we have a hard time listening to the authority of people who look like us. And that's a problem. We got to stop that. We got to start respecting the authority of people who look like us, who are credentialed, who are trained in these areas and know what the hell they're talking about, and get out of the talk that we usually talk when we're on these damn panels and everybody is speculating. And I've done it myself. I speculate, but normally when I speculate anything, I always try to say I'm alleging. I'm not saying that it's facts, but we have to also be careful about how we present things, that it doesn't harm the case. So, Counselor, is there anything else you want to lay on us before I'm gonna go ahead and show this video so that people can get that perspective as well. But is there anything that you want to add?
Yes, I see a few people in the chat complimenting me, and I do appreciate that. I appreciate the love. And I do have a channel, both Doug and
yes,
I.
Let everybody know your channel. Definitely. Yeah, post that link, Doug, all you want.
Yeah, the link to my channel is in the chat. My channel is actually called Empowered Esquire TV. So come on over and check us out. We have a beautiful community where we break down the law. We learn together. It's not about clicks and views. It's about edification and education.
Right. And another thing I want to let you know, I will be putting in the description of this video your channel, your name, and the link to your channel as well, so people can click into your channel in the description of this video. Now, before you go, me and you had a conversation, and I know that you said that you had to make some changes to the way you do things on your channel. you wanted to get back to things that you really feel you have the energy for. And I want to say I appreciate you for doing that, because whenever you're on these YouTube streets, you should stay true to who you are and what really gives you the energy to do what you do. And if there's content that you just don't feel comfortable with doing anymore, then you have to make the path that works best for you. And I respect that.
Thank you very, very much, Info. It means a lot to hear that from you. I have pivoted away from certain topics, certain things, you know, and I understand that that means that I may grow apart from some of my viewers. But as I said, well, I haven't said this yet, but I say this to you privately, right? I'm blessed in the manner that YouTube is not my career, and it truly is a blessing, right? So I can come onto YouTube and I can really use this space for mutual edification and entertainment at times, right? I don't have to push this YouTube space into being a source of income for me. If it evolves into that, hey, okay. But I can really use it as a place where I purely have a passion for what I'm doing. So that's the goal.
Right. Well, yeah, I definitely didn't come on to YouTube as a source of, you know, you can almost, and I'm going to step on some toes here. You can almost tell who has a career off of YouTube. And I know, of course, there's people who make a lot of money and have a career on YouTube that are big YouTubers. No disrespect to them. But for the average person, you can tell who's trying to make a career versus who doesn't have a something personal going on outside of this. And that's very obvious by how often people are on this thing 1,000 times a day. You know, I normally go live on the weekends because I have professional work during the week. And so I know my channel and your channel, you'll take a hit for it in the YouTube algorithms, because YouTube wants you to keep feeding the monster, right? Keep feeding the content over and over again, every day. And I just don't have that type of a channel here. I can't build it that way because you have other personal things in your life that you need to tend to. And I think that's something that we all need to keep in mind. I really appreciate you once again coming over and giving us perspective. And I hope everybody in the chat room, if you got something out of some of the things that the Empower Esquire TV said today, and make sure you subscribe to her channel, and I will put a description of her channel in this video, put a 7 in the chat room to let us know that you enjoyed the stream today, that you got something out of what she said. Don't go away, because I have one other video, a video that I need you to watch today before we come to a conclusion. Put a 7 in the chat room if you got some value out of this stream today, particularly from the Empowered Esquire today. And I want to say thank you to One Busy Mama. I see we got Swoops Like Me in the house. Judah Queen. Doug is a great moderator. All the mods in there are great. We got Real Aaron Collins. The Queen is here. My man, Narratives and Dialogues. Happy Founders Day to you, brother. 06 to you. Everybody, Hakeem, Bonnie Rose, I see in the chat room. Everybody that's here. Patora Afro is here. She's putting lots of 7s. Just Peggy Roster, Mike B, thank you for being here. Patora Afro. I see Peggy Ross. I see Stephen Gilmore YouTube channel. Got to get you back into my algorithms too, brother. YouTube, really pisses me off how they'll kick people out of your algorithms, and they'll also unsubscribe you from people, which I can't stand. And then we got the Honorable Angelina Nordstrom. I know you want me to come on your new YouTube channel and do an interview with you. I will. I will contact you on the IG. And we got Gold, and we got Tony D in there. Kimberly is in the house. Really appreciate all of you. But Last Call is here. Thank you for being here. Rock with the Truth is in the house. I really appreciate all of you guys. All you ladies, gentlemen, all you great people in the chat room. You make this channel go. Well, the Empower Esquire, I don't want to hold you up all day. I know it's a Sunday evening and you're with family. And but if there's anything, before I let you depart the channel, if you want to depart the channel, if you have to, if there's anything that you have not told us as it relates, please say it whenever, say it now. I don't want there to be an opportunity where it was something that you wanted to say that you forgot to say. So if there's anything that's on top of your tongue.
Yes, so I did want to clarify. No, you know what? I'm not going to clarify. I said it clearly, and we're going to leave it at that. I'm going to say this. Shout out to everyone who is here in the chat and on this channel. It means a lot that you support this type of content because there is a lot of foolishness on YouTube. So it really means a lot that you support a content creator like Information Man and you're here having this kind of conversation. Please be respectful to everyone, to each other. If you're having some personal issues, it would be really nice if you could just like be mature about it and keep it to yourself. I know that's a lot to ask for some people, but can we at least try? Other than that, it was a pleasure being here. I hope everyone enjoys the rest of the show. And I'm going to head on out.
Let's Power Esquire, let's do it again. You know what I'll be doing periodically, and you know this, whenever there's a case that's based in legal issues, I definitely want to get you over to clarify. Look, I've been shouting you. Look, I was on another channel the other night, and I was telling people that I was going to be doing this stream with you, and your name is ringing through these YouTube streets with big channels. People are kind of hearing who you are or getting familiar with you. Because they've seen you on my channel and they've seen you other places. So don't ever underestimate your impact on these YouTube streets, because there are people who tell me all the time they can't wait to hear what you have to say. They're so glad you're coming on the channel. So, and if y'all really love this sister like that, then give her your subscribership. And when she goes live, go over there and fill up her chat box, fill up her views, because the reason why I say fill up her views, because you're always going to get something of value when you are watching and listening to and engaging with the Empower Esquire. She's going to give you something of value. You're going to learn something that you can use in your personal life, and you can help you. Her advice can help all of us if we get into a jam. It reminds us of the things that we don't want to get ourselves into legally. I mean, because I'll leave you with this. You've heard the rumors in Power Esquire that over there in Mexico, if you get put in one of their prisons, it's horrible. They may not even feed you 3 meals a day. You might have to have family come feed you. It's horrible.
That's right. That's right. I second everything you said, and I'm going to go ahead and head on out.
All right, sister.
Bye,
take care. Take care. Peace. See you. All right, everybody. Look, let me give you a little bit of this, since this is for people that super chatted me not too long ago, and here we go.
Thank you for the super chat.
Time to run it up. I wake up. Yeah. I wake up, flex, I'm down now. Check, no drip, this wet. Time to run it up. No sleep, no rest. Might crash, might wreck. But first I stretch. Time to run it up. I wake up, flex, I'm down now. Check, no drip, this wet. Time to run it up. No sleep, no rest. Might crash, might wreck. But first I stretch. Time to run it up. 9 out of 10, rub through my hands, I'm by my lonely. Turned to a savage, now my baby wants to hold me. I love my fans, don't need no friends, I got my homies. Thought I could
All right, everybody. I'm back, and this is what we're going to do. I want to shout out the lead attorney, because he had Gerardo Ezekiel. I think I can't say his last name, but Ezekiel. He was on the lead attorney this past week. You probably seen this, but I clipped a small portion of this. This is the investigator in Mexico giving you the perspective in Mexico as to how he sees the case. Now, he's not an attorney. He's an investigative reporter. I know people were saying, well, she is not under custody. He's going to explain you some things that you may or may not know. And I do have to give the lead attorney a lot of credit for speaking to him And when you're going to see on this video, it's a 15-minute video. It will get right to the point. You will see him speaking in Spanish, asking him questions in Spanish, and translating back to English what he is saying. And that will give you some understanding as to why some of us made videos saying that there was a potential or that she was arrested. And I'm going to stand on this, that our American media doesn't always get everything we think that they get. And we know that our American media can't stand those of us on social media because we're taking eyeballs away from them and people are watching us. And so they see us as competition. They will never admit that to you, but it is true. So what I'm going to do right now is let you see this video. And then I'm going to break down. Let me also remind you, as you get ready to see this video, these are the sliders that I wanted to also read to you. Check this out. Widespread corruption, high rates of crime, impunity, and ineffective police and justice systems have allowed crime to flourish in Mexico. Now, I found a site where you have people who live in Mexico talking about these problems. On a state level, 42 governors have been suspended for corruption since 2000, through only 17 have been investigated. So they got 42 governors in Mexico who have been investigated, but only 17 out of those 42 have been investigated for their corrupt behavior. Rampage corruption is a major reason for the ineffectiveness of Mexican security and the justice system. The Empire Esquire said that the family could possibly sue the hotel for having poor security, for not handling the protection of her daughter properly. They could sue them civilly. Not only that they possibly sue civilly the 5 of them, but they could also go for the hotel and sue them. And I hope they do that. Only 18% of Mexicans expressed a high level of trust in public security. Once again, getting back to security institutions since 2017, and only 7% in the case of municipal police. So they don't trust their police in Mexico, people who live there, the citizens, and they damn sure don't trust the security in their own country. Compounding these issues, Mexico also suffers from a high level of impunity. According to the Global Impunity Index, Mexico has the highest impunity rates in the Americas, and the fourth highest in the globe. So they're the highest when it comes to impunity in the Americas. And they are the 4th highest in the whole world, only behind Cameroon, which is in Africa, India, and the Philippines. Very interesting. Tell the truth.
Tell the truth.
Law enforcement officials have also escaped prosecution for crimes such as the R word and torture of suspects. I'm getting to that video in a minute. Mexico authorities issued an arrest warrant for an American on U.S. soil and will be mandated by the United States-Mexican Extradition Treaty. Mexico only has mandatory detention, and it's written into their constitution. Mexico prisons have been criticized for horrific human rights violations and being grossly overcrowded. You see. So with that said, ladies and gentlemen, let's get to the video in question. And here it is, ladies and gentlemen. I want to say before I start this video, as I must do this for the purpose and that is, warning, federal law allows citizens to reproduce, distribute, or exhibit portions of copyright motion picture videos, tapes, or video discs under certain circumstances without the authorization of the copyright holder. This is called fair use, fair use, fair use, and is allowed for the purpose of criticism, news reporting, teaching, and parody, which does not infringe the copyright under 17 USC 107. I want to once again say shout out to the lead attorney on this interview. I think it's important that you see this portion of the interview. I cut it to the points that were most important when he was asking him the questions and translating them back to us in English. This is the man that we've been talking about, that you've been hearing about. That's the investigative reporter in Mexico, lives down there, and he says that he's been getting access to information that maybe our American media doesn't have access to. It's a different country. So I think you need to take that in mind, and I'm playing this for the purpose of you to come up and use some critical thinking skills as to what you believe, what you don't believe. But still, there is the law, and then there's the truth, and there's the lie, right?
Tell the truth.
So with that said, once again, shout out to the lead attorney on this. Let's hear this portion, as this will conclude our program today as we get to the end of this video. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here.
Of the day. All right. You reported that there has been an arrest, that Dion Janeiro has been arrested. Is that true? And if so, why do you think that's the case? Ok, vamos a empezar con la pregunta número uno, ¿verdad? Usted, bueno, tú hiciste una noticia que la señora Dion Janeiro fue arrestada. ¿Por qué piensas eso? ¿Y qué nos puedes decir en cuanto a eso?
Ok, primero que nada, quiero comentarles que el trabajo que nosotros hacemos como periodistas de investigación es investigar lo que está pasando al interior de las estructuras de gobierno.
Ok, y vamos a hacer esto porque yo tengo que traducir lo que dices, entonces voy a estar interrumpiéndote, ok, en cada rato para interpretar. He says the first thing he wants you guys to know is that, you know, his job as an investigative journalist is to investigate, you know, inside the structure of the government, of the system.
Okay. Este caso de Shanquella es un caso muy complejo. Justamente ocurre cuando tenemos un nuevo sistema de justicia penal en México que no permite que las autoridades salgan a informar a los medios los datos importantes de una investigación.
Okay. He says this is a complex case. This case is occurring at a time right now where we have a new system, a new judicial system, a new penal system. And this system does not permit the prosecutors to come out and tell or inform the media about some of the details of the case.
Entonces, como no podemos nosotros obtener la información por la vía oficial, los periodistas que nos dedicamos a la investigación tenemos que recurrir a fuentes informativas al interior del gobierno para obtener datos e información de lo que está pasando de manera extraoficial.
Okay. So because we can't get information official anymore, we have to go inside and get inside government information in a way that's kind of extra judicial. All right. It's outside the normal process.
Fue así como obtuve información de que la joven Danae Jackson había sido arrestada por agentes federales en un lugar que se llama Connecticut.
Okay. According to his sources, listen, guys, DeAndre Jackson was arrested. She was arrested by the FBI. She was arrested in the state of Connecticut.
El 21 de noviembre, la Fiscalía de Baja California Sur, que investiga el caso de Shanquella, solicitó al gobierno de Estados Unidos una orden de arresto con fines de extradición de Jackson. Y en base a los tratados internacionales para que sea presentada a México.
Okay. So on November 21st, the prosecutors in Baja California asked the United States for an arrest order for DeAndre Jackson for her extradition back to Mexico.
Desde el día 21 de noviembre, cuando solicita la captura, un juez federal, un juez de la corte, declaró a DeAndre Jackson prófuga de la justicia mexicana por el delito de feminicidio, por lo que solicitaron su arresto para que sea presentada en México.
Okay. Since that date on November 21st, a federal judge declared that DeAndre Jackson was basically a fugitive of justice from the Mexican system.
La información que yo obtuve fue que a ella la habían estado ubicando de Charlotte y había la última ubicación donde la localizaron fue en Connecticut, en casa de unos familiares.
Okay. He's saying that she was finally located in a house in Connecticut. It was a house that one of her family members had.
El debate hoy es ¿dónde está DeAndre Jackson? ¿Fue arrestada? ¿No fue arrestada? ¿Cuál es el debate que se está generando ahorita en todo el país sobre la noticia que nosotros publicamos y que muchos medios nacionales y de Estados Unidos replicaron sobre su detención?
Okay, so he's saying the question is now, guys, where is she right now, right? Was she really arrested? What's going on with the information that we published that now a lot of other national news media is publishing off the information that we published, that we provided?
Desafortunadamente, para los medios de Estados Unidos ha sido muy complejo el poder tener información de primera mano en virtud de que ellos están allá. Yo estoy directamente aquí en el lugar donde ocurrió el homicidio y puedo tener información de lo que realmente ha pasado, sigue pasando y va a pasar sobre el caso de Shanquella.
Unfortunately, for the people in the United States, it's complicated to get the information firsthand. But I'm here. I'm here where the homicide occurred, right? I can get the details.
Entonces, como periodista de investigación, nuestro trabajo no es esperar a que la autoridad salga y emita una declaración oficial sobre un hecho que ha pasado. Nuestro trabajo es investigar, corroborar esa información y presentarla a la opinión pública para que sepan lo que está sucediendo o lo que sucedió y no esperar el proceso que de acuerdo a la ley del Tratado Internacional de México-Estados Unidos tardará aproximadamente 30 días en darse a conocer de manera oficial.
Okay. I'm going to say this, guys, but this is important, and I want to highlight this. He says, listen, as an investigative journalist, to be honest, it's not our job to wait until the news media puts out information. He says, that's our job to present information to the public. And we are not
Tell the
going to
truth.
wait for a legal process, which in the United States can take up to 30 days to present this information to you guys.
En ese sentido, nosotros logramos obtener esa información y fue que la dimos a conocer. Ahora, en Baja California Sur, ningún funcionario puede dar a conocer de manera oficial la información sobre un proceso que se está sobre un caso que se está investigando.
Okay, and he says, so we got this information and we published it. Okay, he says in Baja California Sur, the officials now cannot give information about an open case, a case that's being processed and investigated.
El artículo 311 de la Ley de Delitos contra la Procuración y Administración de Justicia finca a cualquier funcionario que salga a hablar sobre un tema como un secuestro, homicidio y feminicidio, una pena de 3 a 7 años de prisión y una multa de 200 a 500 días de salario.
He says that according to Article 311 of the Penal Code, or whatever code that they have down there of the law, it says that whatever official, government official, violates this prohibition on speaking on open cases, whether it's a femicide case, a homicide case, or a kidnapping case, whatever official violates this prohibition can be sanctioned with a fine. And I think is, like he said, 3 to 7 years in Mexican prison. Dijiste 3 a 7 años de prisión, de cárcel?
De 3 a 7 años de prisión.
Yes, 3 to 7 years of prison.
Entonces, nadie puede exponer a los medios de comunicación a un imputado en los casos cuando se lleve una detención. No se puede. En México no se puede.
He's saying in Mexico now, these prosecutors cannot give detailed information about a defendant when there's an open case to the news media.
Eso nos ha obligado como periodistas a cambiar un poco el sistema de cómo investigar casos, cómo obtener datos e información para presentarla a la opinión pública y poder exponer información de manera extraoficial, mientras la autoridad puede hablar del caso. En el caso de Jackson, la autoridad únicamente va a poder hablar cuando ella sea vinculada a proceso penal, cuando ya un juez le haya fincado responsabilidades. Hasta entonces la autoridad va a poder salir a hablar y a dar toda la información y todos los detalles de lo que aconteció desde su detención.
So listen, and just to kind of go back a little bit, there's been a change. I talked to you guys about the change in the system. Do y'all remember that? I talked to you guys about that about a week ago, how the old system was in Mexico and the new system. The old system was crazy. All right, it was crazy. The new system has come in to add more fairness and more justice and more due process. All right. So he's talking about, listen, now that there's a new system, guys, this has made the way that we as investigative journalists, it's made us change the way that we get information and present it to the public. Now we have to do it in a extrajudicial way. We have to do it in an unofficial way. He says in Jackson's case, DeAngenaise Jackson, the only way that the prosecutors, that the government can talk about the case is when DeAngenaise is already down there and a judge has legally attached her accusations to her, right? Up until that point, the government officials are not going to be able to say anything.
La ley de extradición internacional que tiene México dice muy claro que únicamente va a poder solicitar extradición de personas que hayan estado involucradas en delitos dolosos, en este caso, crímenes, feminicidios y secuestros, única y exclusivamente.
Okay, he says so that for the international extradition laws that the United States has with Mexico, he's saying that the people that can be extradited under these laws are only people who have been charged with murder, kidnapping, and femicide.
You all heard it there as the lead attorney was interviewing Gerardo. He is an investigative reporter in Mexico, and he's breaking some things down that maybe many of us didn't know about because we don't live in Mexico. And he's saying that the laws have changed in Mexico because they want to make it more fair for people, because for many years, there's been a lot of corruption and a lot of mishandling of legal cases in Mexico. And he also said, you heard the lead attorney say that he said that the extradition agreement, or that Mexico will only try someone based on whether they did murder someone, femicide, the whole 9 yards. You heard it yourself out of the lead attorney's mouth as he is interviewing Gerardo, who is an investigative reporter, and he's translating from English to Spanish, from Spanish to English for us. And I just wanted to play that, and I want to say shout out to the lead attorney as well. Once again, it's fair use, fair use, fair use for the purpose of education, dialogue, criticism, parody. It's fair use, 107. Fair use, fair use, fair use there for the purpose of educating, teaching, parody, criticism, education. That is what I use that portion of his video for under the fair use laws. And but I want to give him credit where credit is due. It came from the lead attorney, as a huge channel. You all know him. He was interviewing. I want to say shout out to Chronicle Speaks because she's been heavy on the case as well. And I thought that it was quite compelling, the things that Mr. Gerardo said in that interview as it was translated back to us in English. I thought he said some interesting things. Now, before I end this, if you found anything that he said very compelling or interesting, put a 7 in the chat room. If you personally felt that his interview that lead attorney did with Mr. Gerardo, if you thought it had some value, if you thought you got something from it, because he's talking from a perspective of someone who's a Mexican citizen as an investigative reporter and telling you there's some things that you may not know that your American media is not telling you because they don't know. And to use deductive reasoning here, those in Mexico who are investigating this, they would know more than we know. Now, of course, let's keep this real. We know that they do have some questionable law enforcement and a questionable government down there. I just ran through some sliders for you, telling you that people who live in Mexico have very little to no confidence in their own government system. They don't have any confidence in the system of security. People in Mexico feel that there's widespread corruption, high rates of crime, impunity, and an ineffective police and justice system have allowed crime to flourish in Mexico. That's how the people feel that are in Mexico. All you got to do is do a Google search about this, and you will find lots of articles and websites talking about this. Tell the truth.
Tell the truth.
I want to thank everybody in the chat room. Make sure you send this to your Twitter, your Facebook, to friends, your loved ones, people who care about this story. I want to say to M. Mills, thank you for being here. My sister, for being in the chat room strong. Empress Goddess, you sent me a super chat. I appreciate that super chat again. Mike B. The guy never said that they did arrest her, only that he was told she was. Mike B, very good point. Let's give you a clap. Very, 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 very good point. Exactly. Because he is an investigative reporter, he can only go on what his sources tell him. The same way that the media in America gets their information based on the sources that tell them to. Or if they happen to catch the situation when it happens with their reporters and cameras. The media in America operates the same way. They can only report based on what their sources tell them to. The information just doesn't come out of the air. So, Mike B, you make a very effective point there. No doubt about that. Jill's Chocolate Boutique says, swoop, like me, are you in Los Angeles? Very good point. Yes. Whoa, it's a good point. Yes, Ivan Fernandez. He is making an excellent point. I'm not going to deny that. Marcus is in the house. MC says, all the corruption from the PRI to the pan political party, the justical court, the jurisdiction court, federales, police, local to the level of and wills of the bureaucracy on top of the prison system, so flawed and broken. Now that's a man that knows what he's talking about.
Tell the truth.
That's a man that knows what he's talking about. We've got Patty Southern Kitchen and more saying, hey, Swoop. Hey, how you doing, sister? Narratives and dialogue. Thank you for that super chat you gave me earlier, Frat 06 to you. Thank you. Happy Founders Day. Real Aaron Collins, Lady St. Clair R. Look, it looks like everybody in the chat room has hit a lot of sevens. So that tells me that people did find the interview by the lead attorney with Mr. Gerardo, investigative reporter, that you guys did find it quite compelling. And I did too. But like the Empire Esquire said, we still have to find out how this all plays out in the wash. But I'm going to remind you, I am very glad that the Empower Esquire said that the family can sue the other 5. They can sue them civilly, and they can sue that hotel. Oh, I definitely think that's excellent. Now, Judah Queen, thank you for being here and coming over and joining us today. Let me see. Narrative Down says, Evan Fando, I am often in San Diego and at the time cross over to the Mexican border. It's been too dangerous. Yeah, I'm sorry. Look, I'm not trying to hate on, folks that live in Mexico, but Mexico is not a place that I personally have any desire to visit. I've been there a few times and have no desire to go back again because of the fact that Americans are not very well treated over there. A lot of shady stuff happens, not to mention women go missing over there left and right. And nobody talks about that. They have they have sex trafficking over there, and they have women that go missing left and right, and children. And that's a damn shame.
Tell the truth.
I'm just keeping it real. What's going on? The great Pill podcast came in the house. He's been in the house watching. Sister Golden Melanin is in here in the house. Give her a clap. Last Call. Thank you, Last Call, for supporting the channel as you do. I have the podcast channel, the Information Man Speaks podcast. So make sure you check that out. I'm also going to do a podcast, but it won't be on the YouTube. It'll be my radio style podcast on Spreaker and all the other stuff like Spreaker, Spotify, and all of that stuff. I'm going to be talking about what's going on Twitter ever since this man called, what's this guy who brought Twitter, this billionaire, Eli Musk. Man, do you know that the racism has peppered up heavy on Twitter since this man took over? He's letting everybody back on. He's letting white supremacists back on the system. He's letting all types of individuals back on. And the racial slurs are upticking. I got to talk about that, but that'll be on my radio podcast, not on YouTube. That'll be, you can hear that on Spreaker, SoundCloud. It's Information Man Speak Podcast. You put that in there, you can follow me on all that stuff. I'm on, what's that? Amazon podcast. I'm on all of it. That would be a radio style podcast that I will do radio style. I thought about doing it live tonight. I might do it live tonight because on Spreaker, I can go live on Spreaker because there's a whole podcasting community that I have an audience over there. And I haven't put a radio podcast down in a while. That's an area that I want to talk about, but keep this in mind. Everything that the Empower Esquire said today was pure facts. It was based in legal. Some of you came into the chat room a little late and you did not see the interview that I did with the Empower Esquire attorney at law. And she broke some things down that you may not know. We didn't get into emotions. We got into what the law will do. And that's why I said I'm happy to know that Shanquella Robinson's mother and father can actually sue the other 5 civilly for damages for whatever role they played indirectly or directly. And they can also take a suit against the vacation spot, the villa. If it's especially a condominium villa that she said, they can go after them. I love that. Let's just hope that at the end of the day that Shanquella Robinson will get justice. Dejanay Jackson is going to be in for a hell of a situation because the prisons in Mexico do not feed you 3 meals a day. Your family will have to come and bring you those hot plates. And if it is true that she is under their custody, hey, you know what? She should be. And if it is true that she's not under their custody yet, but we know that it's coming, folks, it's coming. If she's not. But I kind of feel like there's something going on behind the curtains, behind the scene that we just don't know about. Because I got to ask the question this. Look, we know that people lie and make up stories and they want to clout chase, but I don't get the impression that Mr. Gerardo is clout chasing. You can make an argument that he is putting his life at risk, talking like he's doing in Mexico. So people out there that are saying, well, this man's just clout chasing and maybe he is, maybe he's not. But what I'm saying, using deductive reasoning and logic, he lives in a country where you can disappear just like this and nobody hears from you ever again. He lives in a country where there's corrupt government and corrupt police. And it doesn't mean that we don't have corruption in America and other places in the world. But should I read this to you again? You need to see this again. This is the Information Man Show. We got to learn something. According to Global Impunity Index, Mexico has the highest impunity rates in the Americas and the 4th highest globally. Only behind Cameroon, which is in Africa, India, which is in Asia, and the Philippines, those 1,000 islands in the Philippines. These are the countries who have the most impunity in their legal and their policing systems globally. So if Mr. Gerardo is clout chasing, he's clout chasing at the risk, in my opinion, of his life. Because if the Mexican government doesn't like what he's reporting, they can shut him down. So ask yourself, why would someone risk their life and their family to speak out simply because they're clout chasing on social media, when, by the way, Mr. Gerardo didn't reach out to social media personalities. Actually, people seeked him out when he wrote his stories about this in Mexico. Matter of fact, it was Chronicle Speaks who said that she had to get an interpreter to be able to talk to him, to ask him would he come on as an interview. This man didn't jump out the window and say, let me go on social media in America. He wrote his articles in Mexican in Spanish, not in English. It had to be translated. In the newspaper that he works for, Mexico they printed both in English and Spanish eventually, or English eventually. And if you want to reach out to him, you've got to be able to communicate with him in Spanish or find someone that can. He wasn't looking to be on anybody's channels. Bloggers in America were seeking out Mr. Gerardo. I'm just saying this for people out there that's going to say that he's clout chasing. Clout chasers don't wait for someone to seek them out. They begin jumping themselves out there and talking. This man don't have no YouTube channel. I'm just saying, ladies and gentlemen, but I'm saying. I hope you all can dig what I'm saying. I sound like a 1970s movie. Can you dig it? If we come together in your neighborhoods, your turf, we can run this town, everybody. Well, anyway, that's all I got to say, folks. Thank you again. I'll be back on very soon. You'll probably see me on the podcast very soon talking up. Look, I'm going to do a story. I got to do this, ladies and gentlemen, before y'all leave. I've got to do a story about Deion Sanders. I want to get your opinions about Deion Sanders. I wanted to have a panel today, but I'm up against the clock right now, and I'm going to have to end the podcast. I got family to tend to. So next time we go live, I want to do a panel and talk about the Deion Sanders situation, the impact of him at Jackson State, the impact of him leaving. I think I'll do another video on Deion Sanders during the week, maybe Friday night. I'm going to do a video on him, and I want people to come on the panel and give their opinions about what they think about Deion Sanders. I was thinking about doing it on my podcast channel. I might do it on this channel. I'm just thinking about it. But I've got some raw footage. Deion Sanders, he went to Colorado, and they rolled out the red carpet to him, showed him all the facilities, and he was like a kid in a candy store. I kind of feel bad for the HBC in Jackson State that he was there for about 3 years. Let's give him that credit. He was there for about 3 years. But I kind of feel bad because he kind of infused some swagger into the HBCs and the football team that we hadn't seen in a long time. And so let's have a conversation about it. I'm going to do a video about this. So everybody out there, I appreciate you again. Thank you. Share this video. At the end of the day, we all have our opinions about this case. We all have our innuendo. We all have our legal expertise about it. We all have our thoughts, our opinions. But at the end of the day, we want Shanquella Robinson to get justice, and that those 5 should pay the price. They need to pay the price. And once again, she did say that the Department of Justice could step in and take over this case from Mexico and try all of them in a court of law. So those 5 may not be getting away with this scot-free. You heard it here on the Information Man Show with a legal attorney today. Everybody, take care. Love you. Peace.
Tell the truth.
Please share the video, everybody. I appreciate all of you out there. Love you all. Tell someone that you love them. Hug someone, tell them you love them. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'll be back for more presentation. This is the Information Man Show. Peace. Appreciate all of you.
Tell the truth.
You are listening to Information Man. Please make sure to subscribe to his channel.
Tell the truth. 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 Tell the truth.
Information is power.
What's going on, official 1SP? Peace to you, brother. Peace to you, official 1SP.
truth.
You are listening to Information Man. Please make sure to subscribe to his channel.